otherwise it worked for Stanley?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, you could see the.
I don't know. Even that's all he mentioned is that he couldn't hear it
Alright.
very well.
So, and we're ready to roll.
Yep.
Okay. Hi, Stanley. So
I don't. Yeah, he probably won't be in here yet, but it's still going
I'll
to
just
record to
wave it
YouTube. Yeah.
yeah. And hi, everybody else.
I
Shouldn't
see,
be
yeah.
watching this except for Stanley. Last time we looked at using triangulation to solve the art gallery problem, and there were some terms that we came up with that we're going to need to carry forward. And so the first was diagonal in a simple polygon, and it connects vertices and basically stays inside the polynomial. So it's just a line segment between two vertices that stays completely inside the polynomial. And then we did triangulate. Or triangulation was what we did, but when you triangulate a simple polygon, you find a maximal set of diagonals, of non-intersecting diagonals. So the maximal set, of course, means the most that you can make, and the non-intersecting means that they don't chop the region up into anything other than anything other than they don't cross each other. So we have a diagonal, we have another diagonal. We don't have that sort of thing happening. So, and then the third thing that we looked at was the dual graph. And we did it in terms of a triangulation. But in fact, if you've got any kind of planar drawing that has regions in it, facets in it, the triangles were our facets yesterday, you can construct a dual graph, and in the dual graph, the graph nodes, in the dual graph from yesterday, the graph nodes are just basically the triangles, the facets. And the graph edges are supposed to reflect the adjacency of the triangles. So I'll just say that, the adjacency of the triangles. So we're gonna work off of that idea initially today. So for example, I've got a sort of hexagon-shaped non-good drawing. These are the vertices of it. And I'll triangulate this like this. Doesn't matter how you do it, but and then I'll label my regions. And so we can construct yeah, it gets kind of distorted if I go much beyond that. So I'll sort of stick down on this part here. So if we make the dual graph from that triangulation, there's a bunch of different ways we can go with it. But say I start with A as my root. So I get a node for A. I get an edge from A to B. I'm going to draw it like a tree because in fact it turns out that we get a tree out of the deal here. From B, I've got C. Well, actually B is adjacent to both A and C, so you know that's reflected in this picture. And the same sort of thing happens with C. It's adjacent to both B and D. But we wind up with, in this particular case, it's a pretty degenerate graph. It's just a chain of things. What's significant is A and D are significant in this guy because A is only connected to one, only adjacent to one triangle, and D is only adjacent to one. And if I just arbitrarily picked A to be the starting point on this, let me arbitrarily pick B to be the starting point on this. And when I draw the graph originating from B, I have, if I draw it tree-like, you know, moving down, I have A as one node that it's connected to, and C as one node that it's, you know, that just simply reflects picking this chain up at B. And then from C, I go to D. Same sort, I'm going to do all four possibilities here. If I start at C, I've got D and B and A. And if I pick it up on the other end, I've got D, C, B, A. So in whichever one of these they're all the same, but in whichever one of these pictures of the dual graph I want to look at, this idea of the connectivity, how connected B is, and C and A and D are reflected by the number of edges that come out of each of the nodes. And C and B both have two edges coming out. Regardless of which one of these I look at, there's two edges coming out of C and B. There's only one edge coming out of A and D. Notice that in all of these, if we think of them as trees, which they are, in all of these trees, the only guys that ever are leaves are A and D. The fact that A and D are the only triangles over here that share an edge with one other triangle is exactly what that leafness reflects. All right, so keep that thought. I'm going to do a new diagram here, new polygon. So this one looks like this. So it's this guy, and you can triangulate a bunch of different ways, but I'm going to do this triangulation of it because it's as good as any. So here's another diagram, another triangulation. So in the triangulation that led to this tree over here, we had the most triangles that any one triangle was adjacent to was 2, and it was B and C that were adjacent to 2 triangles. Triangles have 3 sides, so you know potentially there's 3 sides that could be adjacent, and B is exactly one of those guys. In this particular graph, B is adjacent to A, D, and C, and you can draw the graph however, or draw the draw the dual graph however you want from the triangulated polygon, and you'll always wind up with B is linked to 3 other of the nodes. So there's something special about leaves. In this particular case, I had 3 leaves. In this particular case, the most leaves that I got in the dual graph that I pulled out was 2, and the 2 were always A and D. And in any of the representations of the tree, A always wound up, or B or D rather, always wound up at the bottom. So there's something sort of special about them. If I just think of what I do with all here it is. If I just think of a dual graph from a triangulated polygon, so consider a leaf in a dual graph from a triangulated polygon. And let me just, I've got parent and leaf. So here's the leaf guy that I care about. The fact that he's a leaf, and it's reflected in all of the other graphs that I've drawn, there's one connection side, one side that's connected to another triangle. All right, D is a leaf in this, so is A and C, but there's one edge of the triangle that's touching somebody else that causes that business of being connected in the dual graph. So that one side, you know, here's a triangle. Pick a side. Let's pick this side. This is the side that's connected to the rest of the stuff, the rest of the triangulation. So basically, this triangle sticks out. It's a technical term. Sticks out from the rest of the polygon. Well, A is a leaf here. It sticks out, in some sense, from the rest of the polygon. This actually looks like, well, it looks like legs and a head and a torso or something when you get a good buzz from this non-toxic Expo low order marker. But the fact that it sticks out makes it kind of, makes it be something that we can work with. If we stood this upside down, or viewed it upside down, D and C would sort of look like ears. And that's exactly the idea that we're going to work with here. The idea of an ear. We need to define things carefully in order to have the term be meaningful, but that's where we're going with this. So I'm going to take that original hexagon-shaped polygon, and I'm going to triangulate it differently. I don't know. I've got enough of a buzz now that I'm beginning to lose track of where I was going with the lecture, but let me triangulate it. So here are the vertices, and let me triangulate it like this. There are a bunch of different ways you can triangulate most simple polygons, and in this particular one, I triangulate it like this. I've got A, B, C, and D. And if I make the dual graphs from this, the dual graphs always wind up, in this case, always wind up being, you know, pretty trivial. I've got A is connected to B, is connected to C, is connected to D, and starting any other place, B to A and C, to D, C to B to A and D, and D, we just get the reverse chain. But in this particular case, you know, before when I had triangulated it, the picture looked sort of this, I think, or else I did the sloped one the opposite direction. But when I did that, the things that looked ear-like were out here on the ends. And they were labeled as such. In this particular case, the things that are ear-like are actually, off here on the side. And if I were to triangulate this thing, off of this end with the same shape, the ear-like things would look like they're these two guys. So in fact, the point here is the ear-like regions of the polygon depend on the shape of the polygon. That is, this chunk here is an ear, so is this chunk, so is this chunk, and so on as I move around it. And those are dependent upon the shape of the polygon. The thing that makes them ear-like is that polygon. I'm going to redraw this just to get rid of the triangles that are in it. We'll just simply look at it as a polygon. So I can actually do that just by the poor erasing capability of the black marker here. I numbered these somehow. I started here from 1, 2, 3 to 4. Just so that we've got names for the vertices in this polygon. So looking at this, thinking about how you might triangulate it, or thinking about what's potentially going to be an ear on this, or better yet, think of what's potentially the tip of an ear on this polygon. So if I go and pick your favorite way to triangulate it, and then in that triangulation, think of which nodes make the ears, make the tips of the ears in those triangulations. And however you do it, 4 is never going to be an ear tip. Unless you stand like outside, but thinking of in triangulations of the polygon, there's no way that 4 is ever going to be an ear tip. What is the property that ear tips have that 4 doesn't? Well, so I guess I can't. I won't go down that far. We think about an ear tip. Being an ear tip means that you've got 2 other guys associated with you, right? So let's we've got an ear sticking out on a simple polygon, the tip of the ear on the simple polygon. That means that the diagonal that goes between your neighbors is actually a diagonal of the polygon. So, so the thing that characterizes an ear tip, so let me say PI is an ear tip, means that the line segment that goes from PI minus 1 to PI plus 1, the modular arithmetic going around this, is a diagonal. Is a diagonal of the polygon. That's true for everybody in that polygon except for 4, because 3 and 5 are his, and if I take it and connect them with a line segment, I'm totally outside the polygon. All right, that's let me emphasize that a little bit more, here's a standard sort of pathological simple polygon. So it looks like a smile, and in fact, it's called a mouth, just sort of for that reason. But if I go and number these vertices, 1, 2, 3, 4, as I go around, you know, 2 sort of looks, it sticks out, right? It sort of looks ear tip like. But in fact, this line that goes between its neighbors is totally outside the polygon. So you know, the big observation here is 2 is not an ear tip. In fact, in this particular polygon, there's only 2 ears, and they are 4, 1, 2, right? 4, 1, 2. This chunk here, and the corresponding one on that side, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if there's a special notation for ears, but let's say like that: the ear 4, 1, 2, and the ear 2, 3, 4. These guys out here are the ears in this. So you have to be careful. I mean, the idea is, you know, that's exactly what diagonal means, that it stays totally inside. Another way that you could sort of view this is an ear tip is like, you could think of it as it's a convex vertex in the
That's what I was going to ask.
polygon.
Are there ear tips always on the hull?
Yes, kind of. Kind of. I mean, if you think of we can make a counterexample to that, actually. So here's so if I make the convex hull for this, that's going to be like this, 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 and this, right?
Oh,
So the convex hull is really this 5-sided thing, and we lose this.
gotcha.
So being a convex vertex is part of the deal, but your the diagonal between, or the line segment between your 2 neighbors has to be a diagonal. So pi minus 1 and pi plus 1 has to be a diagonal. There's a connection to the convex hull in that all 4 of these are ear tips, but you know, there are additional ear tips as well. So so it's not enough to just be convex. Your neighbors need to form an actual diagonal. All right. Well, so anyhow, that's the idea of an ear and ear tips that go along with it, and a couple of there's a theorem called a fact called the 2-ear theorem. So the first observation is a triangle is an ear. Great, here's a triangle. And in fact, in a triangle, any of the vertices can be the ear tip. suddenly the buzz is just really, really kicking in here. So I'm going to have to either slow down and breathe a lot or speed up and slur everything here in order to get through what's left. But I'm really starting to flow. Non-toxic, low odor. The two-ear theorem, we'll do it as a fact. It's called the two-ear theorem. And it sort of extends the idea of the observation about a triangle. Any simple polygon with 4 or more sides has 2 non-overlapping ears. It's pretty easy to see that. For simple things, we take a rectangle, 4-sided simple polygon, and we can. Here's an ear and here's an ear, and they don't overlap with each other. If we do, how could we do a 4-sided thing that's, well, if we go up to a 5-sided, so if I could draw these 5-sided polygon here, you can easily pick out 2 or more non-overlapping ears. So this is actually 2 or more. At least 2.
What's meant by non-overlapping?
That means they don't encounter each other. They don't intersect each other. So, for example, here's an ear and here's another ear, and they're different from each other. On the other hand, if I look at 4-sided, so here's an ear, and then here's an ear, and they overlap each other.
Right. But
you can separate them. The non-overlapping part, that winds up being useful to us. That combined with one additional theorem that we'll do as a fact. If you remove an ear from a simple polygon, what remains is still a simple polygon. And that business of having, if you've got 4 more sides, you have 2 non-overlapping ears, and the idea of being able to remove an ear and still have a simple polygon gives us a triangulation technique. It's called 2 ears triangulation or ear clipping. Triangulation. I think 2 ears triangulation is becoming the preferred name for this, because ear clipping makes people think about animal abuse, Doberman abuse, basically. But the idea is very straightforward. We've got a simple polygon. We just find an ear and remove it. The ear that we find, this is one of the triangles. And then you just repeat or recur until we're down to 3 vertices, which make a triangle. So every time we clip an ear off, we remove the tip, basically. If we do that, here's the example based off of that earlier simple polygon. So here's the polygon. Guess I'll make my vertices more distinct. So find an ear and remove it. Well, this is an easy ear to find, right? So we remove this. So there's one triangle. We're left with this funky shaped thing. So we'll find another ear and remove it. I guess, this is as good as anything. So we'll remove that ear and we're left with that four-sided polygon. And there are several ears in here, but let's say we remove this one. So there's the third one that we removed. And now at this point, we're down to just this triangle. So we're left with the fourth triangle, and we've triangulated the polygon. So there's a technique for triangulation. Yesterday we looked at an application of triangulating a polygon. Today we've got some kind of technique for it. Of course, doing it and drawing it on the board are not necessarily the same thing. So how do you do this? How do we actually do this? Well, the first step is to find an ear. And the thing that characterizes being an ear is that, so let's lay some ground rules on this. Let's assume that we have the vertices, let's say P1, P2 through Pn in counterclockwise order. So that would be like, this is 1, 2, or P1, P2, P3, P4, P5, and P6. So counterclockwise order, moving around it in counterclockwise order. So find an ear. Finding an ear means that, that means PI is an ear tip. Means that PI minus 1, PI, I plus 1 rather, is a diagonal. Which means that there's no sort of like incursion. Which means that like, if I think of, we're going counterclockwise, so this would be PI minus 1, minus 1, PI, and PI plus 1. That means that we've got a left turn here. If I had them in clockwise order, it would mean a right turn. But basically, it means that it's a convex. The PI is a convex vertex, and we got to check the diagonal part. So So we have the left turn. We want the triangle pi minus 1, pi plus 1 does not intersect any part of the any of the other points. So it does not contain any of the other vertices. The vertices are, it's sufficient to care just about the vertices because, you know, the rule for diagonal means that you don't, that you stay totally inside the polygon. So, so if I draw this sort of like that, this is our potential diagonal. The deal is that doesn't intersect or doesn't ever go outside. And the only way that that can happen is if there's a vertex that's inside. So if this was outside the polygon, that would mean that there would have to be a vertex that lies inside. So in fact, finding an ear means we look for a left turn, and then we have to check to see that no PK lies inside the triangle pi minus 1, pi plus 1. So we're going to have to, you know, we'll have to run through and check all of the PK in order to verify that. So finding an ear is the big step. It's semi expensive. The second step is to remove that ear. So step 2 is to remove the ear. And that means basically we remove the tip. So we want to be left with pi minus 1 to pi plus 1 as an edge of the new polygon. So basically that means we need to remove pi from whatever our data structure is. And our data structure needs to hold these vertices in a manner that lets, you know, that lets us have them in that particular order, and having yanked pi out, now it leaves pi minus 1 and pi plus 1 adjacent to each other in whatever the data structure is. A friendly data structure for this is a doubly linked list. By doubly linked, I mean we've got a link that goes both ways to your predecessor and your successor out of each node. So in a doubly linked list, it's just a matter of yanking that out and adjusting the links of your predecessor and your successor. So like two link adjustments to make that happen. So the cost for this, how can we cost over here? So the cost for this algorithm is I've got to locate ear, which means first of all I have to locate the ear tip. PI. And that means, that means probably a linear search. The second cost here is I have to check the line segment to see if it's actually a diagonal. So that means I have to run through all the other PK and check them. That's going to be a linear check. So we'll have to see if they lie on the wrong side of the line from PI to PK, and then update the data structure. And that if we do a doubly linked list, that can be a constant cost. So we're looking at that for 1 year. 1 year removes one vertex from the polygon. And then we repeat on what's left. So we're looking at, we go from n vertices down to n minus 1 vertices. And we keep doing that until we get down to, 3 vertices, the stopping point, because then we've got a triangle. Each one of these steps is a linear cost. So I'm going, let me just simplify it. I'll just say just purely theta of n cost, because it ultimately isn't going to matter. But I'm doing n minus 3 steps. So I'm looking at theta of n steps, each one of which costs n. So I'm looking at a cost that's quadratic. So I can triangulate my polygon in quadratic time, which is, that's kind of nice, but in fact we can do better. So the question is, if we're doing an application where I need to triangulate and do things based on that triangulation, I definitely want to do it as fast as I can. And so can I go faster than the squared cost? I have to stop because my legs are buckling underneath me. Unfortunately, I'm at the end of my notes, so this was the topic I wanted to cover for today. We'll look on Monday. We'll look at another approach, and it's a sweep approach. We sweep a line across the polygon, but obviously not today. So there's going to be a programming project for the week that's going to get posted tonight. Right now I'm working on an exercise that leads up to it. The project is pretty evidently going to be triangulate a polygon using ear clipping. And the exercise that I'm working on right now is finding an ear, identifying the ears in a polygon. So that's what we got. Stanley, I hope this is working for you. I see it looks like there's quite a bit of glare today from this thing. I don't know what we can do to alleviate that. Maybe if I get some portable lights, we can experiment with things. But I hope the nice blue microphone
It looks like it's picking,
did the trick.
was picking up stuff. Oh, maybe not for me because it's facing away from me.
Yeah, so these can be pretty directional, or you can sort of adjust the.
Oh, there's like a cone you can
Yeah.
change. Huh.
Yeah,
I didn't
I
know that.
don't know how I know how you do that on my snowball, my blue snowball, but I don't know how to do it on a white one.
Gotcha.
So, see you, Stanley, and everybody else that shouldn't be looking at this.